Hello and welcome back to episode 5 of Sports Digest. My name is Jason and welcome to episode 5 of Sports Digest, a sports audio podcast written and produced by me, Jason. Today, I will be discussing the 2024 Vols season as if I will give you guys a recap on what happened last year to going from 2023 to 2024 and going over exactly the outlook for what I feel like they're gonna do so much better things with Nico Iamaleava's first year as a Tennessee Vol, and just overall doing a pretty good job for the University of Tennessee and what he can be able to do to stand out in his first ever career year, like his first year starting, basically. So before I get into this, I would like to extend a gratitude for the listener. I would like to say thank you for listening to Sports Digest. I really do appreciate all of you listening to this right now, and I really do appreciate it deeply from the bottom of my heart. I really appreciate it, and I thank you for your time in listening to this. Let's get into it right away. So the 2023 Vol season, last year we did pretty good. Went 9-4, won the bowl game against Iowa, beat them 35-0 in Nico's first start. He did pretty decent, but last year we had Joe Milton. It was his last year, and it was a final send-off. There were a couple games last year that I was obviously not the greatest in moods after, like especially the Florida game wasn't that fun to just watch. The Florida game was probably the most disappointing loss last year, and so I'm going to go over exactly what the games were last year. Last year, the season opener against Virginia, Vols blow them out 49-13. Then go back to home, play Austin Peay, beat them 30-13. And then go down to Gainesville, lose to the Gators in the Swamp, 29-16 in the most ugly game possible. Like, this game meant a lot to this Vols team. It was a great early test of what they could do for the year. But, it kind of went downhill from there, to be honest. Even after that game, we went on a quick, pretty good run until the Bama game came. And it just, didn't look good after that. Narrowly beating Kentucky, and then lose dramatically to Alabama 34-20, when the first half of that game was probably the best first half of Tennessee football in 2023. And you could have no other spreadsheet around it. Like, it was one of the best halves of 2023 Vols football, and just how they played in the first half against Bama was incredible. And Squirrel White had a really nice toe-dragging touchdown, if you remember correctly. That was right, like in the first drive. I'm pretty sure he had 1 foot in. And in college, you have to have 1 foot in the NFL, you have to have 2 feet in. And, Squirrel White had an amazing catch. And I think he's also going to be a really good contributor to this year's team as he is approaching his junior status. Lost Brew McCoy early this past year, or in 2023 at the South Carolina game. Second quarter, went down with a bad lingering knee issue. Should be on full recovery. I'll brush up on 2024 here in a second. But I'll just get over to the last few games Tennessee had in 2023. The unfortunate back-to-back losses against Missouri and Georgia were really the killers. But beating Vanderbilt 45-24 or 48-24 proved our point. It could beat. And then played in the Citrus Bowl, getting the New Year's Six Bowl against Iowa, beating them 35-0. Like I said earlier, in Nico's first ever start as a Vol. And, Nico is one of the most talented quarterbacks in the country. And, he honestly has probably a really good skill set as the Vols, starting quarterback as of right now. And he was a 5-star recruit coming out of Long Beach Poly from California in the class of 2023. And what Nico means to this Vols team is that he is a fighter. He is going to go to war for this team. He is absolutely amazing in everything you could ask for in a quarterback. He has all the intangibles. He has quick reaction time. He can get the ball out quick. And I'm really excited for the season to start as we approach about 2.5 weeks from the first game against UTC. And I'll go over the Vols schedule real quick in just a very moment, but I'll talk a little bit about Nico Iamaleava. So with Nico, I'm just going to say Nico because saying Nico Iamaleava over and over is just going to be kind of tiring. So Nico is a really special talent, and especially when also the Vols just got a 5-star quarterback, Faison Brandon, the number 1 quarterback from the class of 2026, which recruiting is nothing short of a miracle for Josh Heupel and the Tennessee Vols, and kudos to them because they really do know how to recruit their best players, because for the next 2 classes they have top 10 classes. I think for the class of 25 they're ranked 7th, and for the class of 2024 I think they're ranked 13th, but still that's really good. And shout out to the Vols football organization, including Josh Heupel and director of talent, the athletic director, Danny White. They do an amazing job out there in Knoxville, and they really do know how to get to those star athletes, and they can find them whenever they need them. Even getting George McIntyre this past year, which is pretty good too. I think their quarterback room is pretty good for the next couple of years. And even snagging recruits. They've done a phenomenal job in recruiting just in the past 4 cycles. And, ever since Josh Heupel has gotten there, they've had a top 15 class in each of the years he's been there. And it really was a turnaround from the Jeremy Pruitt days, as if you're a Vols fan, you remember the Jeremy Pruitt era where you had Jarrett Garantano, you had Warren Burrell, you had, Cade Mays after he transferred from Georgia, but Cade Mays, Cooper Mays returning too, which is a big return for the Vols this year. Same thing with Omari Thomas. Omari Thomas did some amazing things this past year. He did incredible things. He's one of the best defensive tackles in this college football league. But aside from all of that and every player returning, it's going to look pretty good for this team in 2024, and I have high hopes for the Vols in 2024. Let me go over their schedule real quick. So for the Vols 2024 schedule, sounds something like this. Well, it's exactly like this because I have their schedule pulled up. So week 1, August 31st, 2024 at 12:45 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, they go up against the Chattanooga Mocs. And, I'll give my prediction on everything here in a second, but let me go over the game. So August 31st, play UTC. Then they travel to Charlotte, North Carolina to do the Dukes Mayo Classic against NC State. I think that's Nico's first test as a starting quarterback, because whenever it comes to a neutral site game like that, you're going to need your quarterback to perform really, really well. Next, the Vols go home and play Kent State on September 14th. And then they travel to Norman, Oklahoma, where they play their first SEC game. Tennessee travels to Oklahoma September 21st and plays the Sooners, which they recently just lost Dylan Gabriel to in the transfer portal to Oregon, obviously. And then they travel, and then they have a bye week on September 28th. Then the next week, they travel to Arkansas, play Arkansas on October 5th. Then they go back home October 12th, play the Florida Gators inside of Knoxville. Hopefully they can get their revenge, their much-needed revenge, And that would be one of the biggest games of the year on the schedule, because I think that's a really good test for Nico against a comparable SEC opponent. I mean, you're still going to have a really big test in Norman against Oklahoma when you have, but I think Nico can do a pretty good job. And then I think the October 19th game is probably going to have game day covered all over it. Alabama takes on Tennessee inside of Knoxville. And if you don't remember, 2 years ago on October 15th, 2022, the Vols beat Alabama for the first time since 2007. And that game, Chase McGrath and Hendon Hooker, and I'll talk about that game for just a minute here, but that game was so much fun to watch and one of the most enjoyable football games I have ever seen in my life. And, I remember vividly just watching the game and just thinking to myself, whenever Hendon Hooker, I think it was like the fourth quarter, it was like near the beginning, I think it was just halfway through the fourth quarter, Hendon Hooker tried to go with a read option to Jabari Small, but he missed, like, whenever he took the snap, like whenever a quarterback snaps, I'm sorry I clapped right there, but whenever a quarterback snaps and he tried to hand it off, it just was a bad package delivery, and then Dallas Turner scooped it up and scored. And then following that, Hendon Hooker led him down to, I think, the 19-yard line. It was 4th and 7, and Hooker got out of the way, threw it, and it was intercepted by Kool-Aid McKinstry, but flagged by Alabama, pass interference on Kool-Aid McKinstry. Vols get another chance. Hendon Hooker throws a dime straight to Jalen Hyatt the next play, and that was the game that Jalen Hyatt had 5 touchdowns in a single game. My favorite touchdown from Jalen Hyatt on that game was the one, I think it was in the fourth quarter. It was going to be him on that over route whenever he saw a post-in route Jalen Hyatt was running. And basically he beat the 2 defenders. And I remember, what's his name on CBS? I know the SEC is no longer on CBS. They're on the Big Ten. But what's his name? Not Gary Danielson, but the other guy. You know exactly who I'm talking about. And he basically Jalen Hyatt, touchdown, Tennessee. And I forgot his name. I'm going to think of his name, and I'm going to say it at some point in this. I know I am. I'm going to be livid if I can't remember his name. It's someone CBS's play-by-play commentators, but phenomenal game. And the cigars at the end and taking down the goalposts and throwing the goalposts into the Tennessee River. And, Alabama's first year under Kalen DeBoer. And, that's going to be pretty fun to watch, obviously, and see how far they'll go. But they do play Alabama on October 19th. And then I'll get to the rest of the schedule in just one moment. Then they have their second bye week of this season on October 26th. Then they come back home, play Kentucky, then stay home again, play Mississippi State. Then they travel to Athens the following week and play Georgia. Then they come back home on November 23rd, play UTEP. Then they travel for their last game to Nashville and play the Vanderbilt Commodores. Is that how you say it? Yeah, the Vanderbilt Commodores. So I'm going to give a week-by-week prediction now of how I think the Vols are going to do. So August 31st, UTC at Tennessee. I think Tennessee just absolutely steamrolls through UTC. Unfortunately, yeah, I know that is my current school that I'm kind of not throwing that much shade at, but I'm just saying that Tennessee has a better team just all around than UTC does, and I think they could beat them easily. Moving on to the Tennessee NC State game in Charlotte. This is going to be Nico's first test in an away environment. I say neutral site environment because, I would count the bowl game as his first start, but this is his real first start in an away game against a pretty decent NC State team. And I think the Vols can take care of business there as long as they don't turn over the football. And as we get closer and closer to the weeks, I'm going to be giving individual episodes to a preview. I plan on doing that for every game, Vols and Titans. And speaking of the Titans, they won their first preseason game against the 49ers this past Saturday. They won 17-13. And I'll give my thoughts on that later, but they did an outstanding job. I think Tennessee can beat NC State here in the Duke's Mayo Classic. So Tennessee's 2-0 right now, heading back to Knoxville, play Kent State. That should be another pretty easy win. They moved to 3-0. Now, Tennessee at Oklahoma, that's going to be a really, really good test for Nico. This is going to be a really close game. It's going to be really defensive heavy, and I think Tennessee actually pulls off the win, and they move to 4-0. Moving to 4-0 before they travel back to Knoxville. Take the rest. Take the rest while you can. There's a reason why earlier buys are better, and I'll explain that reason why in just a second. So earlier buys are better because you have a better chance of, let's say someone gets injured. So let's say James Pierce gets injured at that Oklahoma game. It's some minimal injury, but you still get an extra week to prepare and, get him ready for the Arkansas game or sit him out against the Arkansas game. But I think Tennessee can beat Arkansas without James Pierce. They still got Omari Thomas, which was one of the biggest returns in the game. I think that's amazing how he's coming back. And, Omari Thomas is one of the defensive lineman leaders on the Vols team, if you didn't know. And he can produce really well. He had a pretty dang good season last year. And even before that, he's an outstanding defensive tackle. And just all the credit goes to him, really. He's an outstanding run stopper. He is just a mauler. I would give him a good NFL projection to be like Jeffrey Simmons. That is the best comp for him. And he's just a great leader on the defensive side of the ball. Moving right along to the October 12th match against Florida. I think Tennessee does get their revenge against Florida, and they improve to 5-0. Now, having that momentum, it's going to slow them down a little bit because they play Bama the following week, and as we all know, Bama tends to do pretty good. And yes, I know Bama is just no joke. They got a new head coach this year because Nick Saban is retiring. He said no, but he's taken up the job at ESPN as an analyst, so respect to him. He's an outstanding coach. Honestly, just nothing but greatness for that whole Alabama football. He is the reason why Alabama is exactly what Alabama stands for. He is no joke, no tooth and nail. He is one of the best head coaches in college football history for a reason. He got 7 national championships with Alabama. It's insane to think of that. There's no reason why he was so good. When he was in the NFL, I think, before he was at Bama, he was with Miami Dolphins, by the way, if you didn't know. And before the Miami Dolphins, he was with LSU. So there's a little history about Nick Saban. But he was really, really good with LSU. Left that to go to the Miami Dolphins. Didn't do so well with the Miami Dolphins. So he said, screw it, I'm going back to college. And then he chose the Alabama Crimson Tide. And the rest is the last 16 years of history. And as you know, Nick Saban, crazy, outside-minded, or defensive-minded coach. He is literally the reason why Alabama is such a good brand of football. Is literally because the first thing you think of when you think of Alabama is Nick Saban. And there's no coach that's ever going to come close to his stature of success. Maybe Kirby Smart might be that successful at Georgia because he did win back-to-back national championships. But there's a really good argument that Nick Saban is the best college football coach of all time. But regardless, I think Tennessee does lose this game against Alabama, dropping the record to 5-1, heading to the Kentucky week. I think they can beat Kentucky, so the 6-1. Then they beat Mississippi State. They go improve to 7-1. Then they travel to Georgia, and we all know how that's gonna go. That's just gonna be a bloodbath, I think. I think they'll downgrade to, I think that's 7-2, right? I'm recounting. So 3-0, 4-0, 5-0, 6-0 after Florida. 6-1 against Bama, 7-1 Kentucky, 8-1 Mississippi State on November 9th. They lose to Georgia, 8-2. UTEP, that's another win, 9-2, and 10-2 after they beat Vanderbilt. So I have the Vols going 10-2, only losing to Georgia and Alabama. I mean, that's a really good record for Nico's first year, and I think Nico is going to be a star in the making, and like he really is a once in a lifetime talent. Like, he is one of the better college football quarterbacks in this league, and if you see him play at all, only time will tell when we see him play, but I think he's going to be really good for this Vols team, and he has a lot of weapons to go to, including coming back from injury, Brew McCoy, as I mentioned earlier. I'll go over the wide receiver room and such for this Vols team. But, Nico's first year, I think they're going to go 10-2 with the amount of depth that they have on their team and, their team total. I think they can do a really, really good job this year. And the fact that I think the AP preseason poll just came out this afternoon, I want to say, excuse me, and I think the Vols came in at 15, if I'm not mistaken. So that's a pretty decent ranking. I'll get into my ranking here in a little bit, but I'm going to save that closer to the end on you can skip forward in this podcast if you want to hear my top 25 ranking, because I have the list right here of my top 25 pulled up on my computer. But I'll discuss to you guys this Tennessee Vols roster for 2024, and it looks pretty deep, and it looks pretty comparable. And I do think that Tennessee is going to make the college football playoffs as one of the seeds, like one of the later seeds in the playoff. And, 15 to start off the preseason AP ranking, I think that feels pretty good. Obviously, it's not the official ranking yet, but we will get an official ranking, I think, the Monday before the first slate of games. So sometime in the next couple of weeks, we will get our first season rankings and, see where everything stacks up. So I'm going to go over this 2024 Tennessee Vols roster right now. Okay, now on to my recap, and basically what I'm going to talk about now is the 2024 Tennessee Vols roster. So this roster, like I said earlier, is pretty darn deep, and I'll go over just like how I did in the last episode where I went over the Titans roster, like just by position group, and I'll get my thoughts and my feelings towards each position group. So at quarterback, obviously they're going to start Nico Iamaleava. Nico at quarterback 1, because that makes the most sense. He is the most well-rounded quarterback out of this quarterback room, and the rest of the quarterback room, I mean, it's going to be Nico, then Gaston Moore, then Navy Schuler, then maybe Jake Merklinger, may or may not, just redshirt Jake Merklinger. He is a freshman 4-star from Georgia, and, it's going to be a quarterback 4, and Nico's just going to start. That's just part of it. So I think the quarterback room is really good, really deep. You know, you got Navy Schuler and Gaston Moore, two really talented quarterbacks that, you know, they can shine out like as they're really good backups. They're really good depth for this team, and you know the quarterback room looks pretty dang solid. Now to the running back room, they got Dylan Sampson, they got Cameron Seldon, they got Peyton Lewis, Hunter Barnes. You know, I think Dylan Sampson's going to get the start, and then Cameron Seldon's going to follow. And Dylan Sampson has some pretty good speed, probably as good as Jalen Wright's speed last year. And, you know, losing Jalen Wright is kind of a low blow, but, you know, Dylan Sampson and Cameron Seldon are going to definitely fulfill that deep need in running backs. And I also think Peyton Lewis, freshman from Salem, Virginia, is going to do really good things. I think that's the main three that they're going to run with: Dylan Sampson, Cameron Seldon, and Peyton Lewis. You know, they're all going to do a pretty good job of, you know, going through that. And if Cameron Seldon and Dylan Sampson can get it done, I really think that they have a really great running back room, and you know, I think it's very possible that they can do it. So I just think that their running back room is going to be really good, and it's going to be so great. So now I think that the wide receiver room also is one of the better ones in college football. And you got Brew McCoy, who's coming off that torn Achilles from last year. You know, the South Carolina game was really awful. I mean, it wasn't awful. We won really well. We got our comeback against South Carolina because they kind of kicked our butt in 22. And that game in 22 was such a weird game. Lost horrendously. And, you know, Brew McCoy's coming back for his third year in Knoxville, and I can't wait to watch Brew play again. You know, you got the freshman Mike Matthews. You know, he is an elite talent, got great hands. You know, he is one of the better pass catchers in this league. You obviously got a return in Squirrel White, Dante Thornton, Caleb Webb, Chaz Nimrod. You know, all those great players. And I think it's going to be Squirrel White, Brew McCoy, Mike Matthews, Caleb Webb, Dante Thornton. Those are going to be your main 5 wide receivers that they're going to rock with. And, of course, you also got to think about Chris Brazel II, who's a transfer from Tulane. He's also going to produce high numbers. He's a very tall, gifted, great talent at the wide receiver position, and he did really good things for Tulane in his freshman year. I think he was at 70 receptions for 600-plus yards last year and 7 touchdowns. He's a great production, and he's going to definitely help Nico out with, you know, they're going to do a really good job. And, you know, the fact that you have 4 wide receivers on this roster that are 6'4" and taller: Brew McCoy, Chaz Nimrod, Dante Thornton, and Chris Brazel. They're all 6'4" and above. Chris Brazel and Dante Thornton are both 6'5". You know, he got some height and some speed to this wide receiver core. Even with Squirrel White being 5'10", he still backs that up with his speed. And Caleb Webb as well is a tall, athletic, gifted wide receiver. And the wide receiver room in this team is probably the best I've ever seen since the Jalen Hyatt, Cedric Tillman, and, you know, who was the others? Jalen Hyatt, Cedric Tillman, Brew McCoy, and Ramel Keaton. Ramel Keaton was really a great slot whenever we needed him. So, yeah, I think this is the best wide receiver core since that core 4 was a few years ago. Tight end room, obviously, got the loss to Jacob Warren. Lost Jacob Warren to the NFL, and we lost McCowan Castles to the NFL as well. But we do replace it with Ethan Davis, you know, Charlie Browder, who is one of the taller tight ends. He's like 6'7", I'm pretty sure Charlie Browder is. 6'7". Ethan Davis is an athletic freak of nature. You know, you got someone like Holden Stays and Luke Schaus. It's a really good. I mean, the receiver room and tight end room, both are really deep, really great to have, and it's just going to relieve a lot of pressure from Nico. And then now the offensive line room, you know, you got plenty of players returning like Cooper Mays and John Campbell Jr. So those are two big returns. And, you know, I think this offensive line room can be one of the best, honestly, in college football. They just need to pass block. That's the one thing that they really need to work on improving. Plus, they got Javonte Spraggins back, you know, for his 5th year. And, you know, it's going to be a really good. And they also got Lance Hurd from the transfer portal coming over from LSU. And that's going to be really good. And Max Anderson from the transfer portal. And it's gonna be pretty good offensive line room. You know, I think the Vols have really good pass blockers and really good tackles and really good interior offensive linemen with Cooper Mays and Andre Karic, both really great guards that can really just pass pro, and it's going to be great. Now let's move on to the defensive side of the ball, where the Tennessee Vols did end up getting Caleb Herring. This is going to be great. They got Norman Lott back, and Elijah Simmons and Omari Thomas back, you know, for their last years in Knoxville. Unfortunately, they're going to be seniors, but still having that core front, plus having Caleb Herring and the outstanding David Hobbs, plus you have someone like Bryson Eason and Dominic Bailey, both outstanding players, plus the new 5-star freshman Jordan Ross from Alabama, insane pass rusher, just like James Pierce Jr., who I think is one of the best pass rushers in college football. Had a really outstanding year last year, racking, I think, 12.5 sacks last year. He is just a force to be reckoned with. And this defensive line room, it's pretty dang good. Like, it's outstanding how good James Pierce is. And, you know, he's going to be I think he's going to be a top 10 pick in next year's draft for sure. So, right now, he is the best edge rusher in this college football. So, the only concern I really have on this roster is the linebackers. I mean, you do have Keenan Peely and Caleb Perry, and, you know, Montreal Bandy and Eli Purcell. But I think the two main that they're going to run with is Arion Carter and Keenan Peely. They're both going to play inside linebacker. The problem where it comes to on linebackers is depth and depth speed, but they have plenty of freshmen like that can back up Cody Duncan, Jordan Burns, Eli Purcell is not a freshman, he's a senior. Edwin Spillman is really good, really fast linebackers. Jalen Smith, Jeremiah Tellender, you know, great depth at linebacker. That's the only really positional issue I really have a problem with, quote unquote problem, meaning like the only problem really is just finding someone you can plug and play. Like Caleb Perry's going to be a really good backup for Keenan Peely, and then Arion Carter is also one of the better linebackers on this team. So now to my favorite group, which is the DBs, and that's obviously going to be going with the main three of Ricky Gibson III, Colin Brazel, Montreal Bandy, Jeremiah Tellender, you know, Marcus Gorey Jr., Ricky Gibson III, Jacoby Thomas, and Andre Turntine and William Wright. All of these players are really talented playing defensive back for us. Jordan Matthews is also one of the most outstanding freshmen. He is going to be phenomenal. And, you know, I think a lot of these players are either freshmen or sophomores, and we are really deep on just getting players developed, and DBs are kind of harder to develop than other positions. But I think once they get their groove, they're pretty darn good. And even getting some of these freshmen like Edris Farouk and Jackson Matthews, it's going to be one of the better groups. So the last group is special teams, and I think it's going to be JT Carver is going to be our starting kicker. And then our punter is going to be Jackson Ross, who is a lefty and righty kick punter. So he can kick with his left foot, and he can punt with his left and right foot. So he's ambidextrous when it comes to his punting ability, and he's like a Ryan Stonehouse when it comes to punting, because his average is 42.5, and his longest last year was 71 yards. Jackson Ross is a beast. I think he can do phenomenal, and turning over the ball is one. I mean, like, whenever you punt the ball, you want to get as much as you can into the ball and kick it as high as you can. So, yeah, I think the Vols have a really, really great shot of making the college football playoff. And to be honest, they really deserve everything that they get handed to them, because they're one of the better teams in the country. And, I think that the Vols have a really good shot at making the top 12. What's it called? The top 12 playoff field, which is going to be new this year, a 12-team college football playoff pool, which will be pretty interesting to see how that will unfold. This will be one of the better years to watch college football, because if you're not into college football already, then be tuned into this year and years ahead, because college football has gotten to the point where it's really entertainment based, and it's really exciting to watch. It's one of the most enjoyable sports, and plus there's so much action in between each game. And I just love the game, love the sport, love the hell out of it, love the grinding it comes from. And college football is just one of those beautiful things in life where you can get to watch it, and it's so much fun to enjoy and see, and it's such a fun time all around. So now I'm going to tell you guys what the AP poll is, and I'm going to give you guys my top 25 now and wrap up this podcast in the next 10 minutes or so. So for the next 10 to 15 minutes, I'm going to give you guys my top 25 poll, plus throw in what AP has dropped from their own top 25 college football poll. This is preseason rankings, and this was released just this morning at around 10:30. So, it'll be yesterday morning, because you're probably listening to this on Tuesday, August 13th. But this is what AP has put in their top 25. Number 1, Georgia. I completely respect the hell out of that, because I have also Georgia at number 1. I'll give you guys my list in just a second. Number 2, Ohio State. Number 3, Oregon. Number 4, Texas. Number 5, Alabama. Number 6, Ole Miss. Number 7, Notre Dame. Number 8, Penn State. Number 9, Michigan. Number 10, Florida State. Number 11, Missouri. Number 12, Utah. Number 13, LSU. Number 14, Clemson. Number 15, Tennessee. Number 16, Oklahoma. Number 17, Oklahoma State. Number 18, Kansas State. Number 19, Miami. 20, Texas A&M. 21, Arizona. 22, Kansas. 23, USC. 24, NC State. Number 25, Iowa. Now these teams, whether you like them or not, this is the top 25 poll. They have their own stuff, but my poll is a little different, just slightly different from what AP has. I have the top 5 as the same. Georgia number 1, Ohio State 2, 3 Oregon, 4 Texas, 5 Alabama, Number 6, I put Notre Dame. Number 7, I put Penn State. Number 8, I put Ole Miss. Number 9, I left at Michigan. Number 10, I put Missouri. 11, Florida State. 12, LSU. 13, Tennessee. 14, Clemson. 15, Utah. 16, Miami. 17, Oklahoma. 18, Texas A&M. 19, Oklahoma State. 20, Arizona. 21, Kansas. 22, USC. 23, NC State. 24, Iowa. 25, Louisville. Yes, I put Louisville in my top 25. Yes, I know. But hear me out. Louisville can do really good. Like, Louisville, the Cardinals we're talking about, nothing else. I think that's the only Louisville that ever exists. But Louisville is low-key kind of cold. I mean, meaning that they're good. Jeff Brom doing an amazing job up there in Kentucky. You know, all the respect to him. He's doing a phenomenal job, actually, if you think about it. He's doing a really good job for Louisville and what he's doing for that team. And Louisville, I think, has a really nice schedule. Their only competition really this year is Notre Dame, Miami, and Clemson. And they very much could be in the running for the ACC. And I think they have a good chance of being up there in the ACC. Obviously, they have to compete against Clemson and Miami, but still, I think the ACC is very much up for grabs this year. And, you know, Louisville's one of those top 5 teams in the ACC. I said it. They're a top 5 team in the ACC, and, you know, they can do a really good job with Brom there. And, you know, their offense is really explosive, and to the point of they should be ranked in the top 25. That's why I put them at 25, because I believe in their program, and I think that they could do a really good job this year. But with that being said, Tennessee at 15, you know, my original thoughts are just, you know, I think I think they should boost Tennessee up just a little bit because they did win their bowl against Iowa. And they beat them 35-0. I know Iowa has a pretty dang good defense, but 35 points. And their offense had no answer for that in the Cheez-It Bowl. Yes, I called it the Cheez-It Bowl, not the Citrus Bowl. Okay, I call it the Cheez-It Bowl. All right, Cheez-Its, dude. Cheez-Its are such a good snack, such a S-tier snack. I hate to digress, but like, Cheez-Its are just amazing. It's the best snack ever. I'm not sponsored by Cheez-Its. I would love to be. Cheez-Its, if anyone is listening to me, I would love to have a box of just amazing extra toasty Cheez-Its. And you know what? Cheez-Its, dude, you guys are doing amazing. That is not paid, but heck, Cheez-Its are amazing. Before I go on the Cheez-It rampage, let me just say what my favorite Cheez-It flavor is. You know, like whenever you see the Cheez-Its duos, like the flavors, like the 2 flavors, I really like the sharp cheddar and Parmesan. That is the best Cheez-Its ever. You know, you also got the Cheez-It duos of like, it's like the pepper, jalapeno pepper, and the cheddar jack. Oh my gosh. Those are so good. Like, you can't go wrong with Cheez-Its. Cheez-Its are just amazing. And the Vols won the Cheez-It Bowl. Yeah, I'm still going to call it the Cheez-It Bowl. But that's what my thoughts are on the Tennessee Vols this year. I think they can make a pretty deep run into the playoffs. They'll probably win their first game and lose the second. But, you know, making it to the college football playoffs with the new expanded 12-team field, we'll see how it unfolds this year. Only time will tell. And you know what? Every week for the NFL and in college football, I'm going to give my predictions for each game of the week for the episode of the podcast, and give a little preview to the Tennessee, whoever they play against, for you guys. So look forward to that. Doing that would be so much fun. college football is such a beautiful thing, like I said earlier, and it's one of those sports where it's really fun to watch and really fun to enjoy. If you've never watched college football a day in your life, I highly recommend watching it. At least just watch some highlights of college football. And, you'll just be amazed at how some of these players are just so damn athletic. And you're just thinking to yourself, holy shit, how is that even possible? Well, it's possible because, they're just outstanding athletes, and give all the glory to God because He is almighty and He is the reason why we're all here. Gotta love God. Shout out to God, man. He for real, the GOAT. Jesus Christ died for our sins. So that's our little history lesson, but I don't want to get too religious here because that's kind of a sticky, icky, ricky topic. But no, Jesus, football, there's nothing like sports. There's something about sports that just bring a smile to everyone. It's one of the biggest influences in my life, specifically because I love sports so much and I enjoy talking about sports so much, and that's what I'm doing right now. And sports have such a mean thing to some people, but I view sports as one of the most beautiful things ever, and it warms my heart. Coming from the bottom of my heart, I really enjoy sports, and the reason why I got into sports in the first place is because I'm such a fan of these teams, like the Vols and the Titans. Dude, tighten up and go Vols till I die, because you can hate someone respectfully. Just do it in a polite way. Whenever you're doing sports stuff, just be polite. That's all I'll ever ask. And that's all I'll ever ask of you. Just be polite to one another and just hope for the best. And hopefully you guys enjoy the rest of your day. That was episode 5 of Sports Digest, a sports audio podcast produced and written by me, Jason Shelton. I hope each and every single one of you have an amazing rest of your week. And guess what? We're only 11 days away from college football. Let that sink in. 11 days away. So the wait is over. We are so back. College football is just right around the corner. And with that, thank you all for listening to this episode of Sports Digest. I hope each and every single one of you have a great and amazing day. Till next time. See ya.